listening to the Wandering Chronicles podcast. I'm Ashley.
I'm Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
How's it going?
I don't know. I'm no longer able to fake being okay, so I'm not going to pretend. Yeah. It's just who I am. This is where I'm at right now, and people are just going to have to deal with it.
Fair enough.
We haven't met for a couple weeks.
Yeah, we haven't recorded a legit episode for a while, so this is kind of getting back into the swing of things, but I'm going to give you a warning. There might be some spicy Johnny in the background. He's been hissing at his sister every time she comes near him. And I don't know what happened, but it must have happened while I was out grocery shopping, because when I came home, he was extra spicy, and she was very, very confused, so...
She must have said something rude.
She must have. I don't know, Johnny gets spicy pretty quickly. He's Angry Johnny for a reason. I guess we should mention that as we're recording, there was a shooting in Highland Park, which is about 12 miles from where I grew up. And
yeah.
It's
pretty close to where you live now, too.
It's about 26 miles from me, yeah.
It's outside of the city.
Oh, yeah. It's
really close by. It just starts to feel like it's a long way when you live in, like, a 5-mile radius, usually.
Yeah, and I was looking it up, and it's like a 30-minute drive from where I live now. Which, again, like, when you put it into time, 30 minutes is not very long. And then, you know, it's 12 miles from where I grew up. Ironically, I just found out I was supposed to be near there today, but I ended up not going through with my plans.
That's what I was wondering.
My dad was like, well, just be safe wherever you go. And I told him, you must be really glad that your daughter's really antisocial right now. And he just started laughing and said yes.
Highland Park isn't far from where I live.
You lived on the west side. Like, farther west, I think. Hoffman Estates, right?
Schaumburg.
Schaumburg? Yeah, if it's Schaumburg, it's not too far.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we went up that way a lot. In Skokie, there was a restaurant that I liked, so we went to Skokie a lot.
Skokie's right next door to where I grew up.
Yeah, it's a shitty time to be in America, and this country sucks, and I don't want to pretend that I don't feel that way ever again. So, well, I feel like every time I start to catch my bearings, and I start to feel like, okay, we can now deal with this problem, something else happens, and it's like there's 50 problems, there's too many irons in the fire, and I don't know what even we should focus on first, because they're all important.
They're all bad.
They're all bad. I mean, the prayer in school thing is a bad thing.
Yeah. It's really bad.
It's just opening up for the teachers that aren't Christian to be harassed. Because that wasn't an invitation for Muslims to pray in class. That's what I'm about. I
was walking home on Friday, and as you know, because I've told you, I was delirious on Friday. I didn't sleep Thursday night. I just wasn't all there. But I remember walking home, and I passed a guy who was on the ground with his rug out, and he was praying on the street, and I thought that was just so cool that he could just, like, take his rug out, and he could just pray wherever he is, because in my mind, religion isn't confined to a building.
It should be that for everyone. The sad part is that it isn't.
And I just thought, I hope nobody bothers him for doing this. But he's in an area where I don't think people would, and there's a lot of people in, like, within the block or two that probably are the same religion as him, so hopefully he's fine. But I just thought it was kind of cool to see him just, like, take out his rug, and he's just doing his bowing, and I don't know, I thought that was kind of cool.
I really don't even have a problem with a teacher praying in class, as long as the expectation isn't that everybody else should join in, or there's no pressure towards people to join in.
Yeah.
Because, like, whatever, I don't care, do what you want to do. We pray at lunch. I remember that being kind of a normal thing where I grew up. You prayed at lunch before you ate your meal, like, that was part of lunch.
Yeah.
Not everybody did it, but it was just an individual thing that people did if they chose, at their own space, without bringing anyone else into it, and I'm fine with that. It's when it gets pressuring towards other people.
When I was in college, I was in a sorority that did have some religious parts to it, and so non-Catholic, non-Christian, non-Lutheran, whatever, people in the sorority, I think I was the only Jewish person in the sorority at the time. They never expected me to actually say the prayer. If I just stood there quietly, just not saying anything, that was fine. Sometimes I'd feel a little awkward not saying anything, so I would just say the word, like, mouth the word watermelon over and over again, because it looks like you're just saying whatever they're saying. And honestly, when I go to temple, sometimes I do the same thing. I just mouth the word watermelon over and over again until everyone stops talking.
So this episode, we are going to Cleveland, Mississippi. I wish I could tell you that was going to be like a amazingly awesome, heartwarming, and distracting story, but that's not the case. There is a lot of good to it, but, you know, it's a good piggyback on the Versailles episode that we did a couple weeks ago where Black people have just been treated like shit in this country forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's more of that, but I do think it's an important story to tell. As a reminder, the topic was cultural.
So this is the first episode we're recording since I was in St. Louis last weekend and we actually got to meet. So I just want to, like, talk about us hanging out a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
That was nice. Feels like a month ago, but it was nice.
It does. Yeah. I'm glad that we got to hang out. It's been like the one nice thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks.
It was really nice. It was the highlight of my weekend.
Oh, well, that's nice. I got to meet your dad and Gail as well, which was nice.
Yeah, they were nice. They liked you.
I got for a second, I was like, you know how when you meet someone and you feel like, I'm doing good, and then you go one sentence over the line, and you're like, oh, that's where I fucked up.
That's where.
There was a moment where I thought that I did that, so when you told me later that they were really cool, I was like, that's good. Because I thought I was doing fine until I wasn't. No, you did
great. You did great, and I just want to talk about how happy I was to meet your cats finally.
That's true, you did get to meet the kitties.
Nigel is a love. Nigel is a love.
Yeah, he's the most affectionate cat I've ever met. He's annoying, but he's sweet as hell.
Yeah, and Gordy is as soft as I thought he would be.
Yeah.
He's a fluff.
That's only because he lets me brush him sometimes.
He's a fluff.
It would be entirely matted if he didn't let me brush it sometimes.
He is so handsome in person. It's incredible. And Chibi, I am somehow more in love with Chibi than I was. She is so freaking cute and so tiny. She really does live up to the Chibi name.
Yeah, she's a lot bigger than she was when I got her. She's actually like a healthy weight now, but when I got her, she was only like 2 pounds.
Oh, such a sweet little girl.
When I say got her, I mean found her, because she was dumb. I think April pretty much hid the whole time you were here, if memory serves.
Yeah, I got to see her for like 2 seconds. She was mostly just a lump under your blanket.
I don't know, she's not afraid of a lot of things, like when the fireworks go off, because we had those yesterday. She doesn't hide. She sometimes will go with Nigel and hide because he's afraid and she wants to hang out with him. But it's not because she's afraid. It's because he's afraid. And she's like, what are we doing?
What's going on? Why are you hiding?
Yeah, why are you behind the toilet? It's weird. Let's go somewhere else.
Yeah, neither of my cats care at all about that sort of thing. Like, they were both just nonchalantly just laying on the floor, just minding their own business.
Yeah. So we're recording this on the 4th of July, so the main fireworks will likely be tonight, but they started in my neighborhood last night, and they weren't bad. I mean, they're definitely compared to when I lived out in the country, nothing. There's just a few little pops here and there. But the people that live upstairs from me, I had this realization while I was sitting there listening, and I'm listening to them running around and, like, yelling. I'm like, they immigrated to the United States in November. I wonder if they even know what the fuck is happening right now. Because they don't speak English.
Oh, no.
So something tells me they don't watch TV. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
American
they wouldn't have
TV
seen it on the news. So, I mean, if there wasn't, like, a language barrier, and also if they weren't, like, if they were from a war-torn country, I would have gone up there with an app and been like, we're fine.
It's okay, you're not under attack.
Yeah, but I'm like, they have kids that live here that are English speaking. They'll call their kids and panicking and figure it out. I think me adding myself to the situation is just going to make it scarier for them than is helpful, but definitely was kind of funny sitting down here listening to them run around closing windows and yelling at each other in Albanian.
I mean, we had fireworks going off until about 11 o'clock last night, and then they just stopped. And I was like,
yeah.
I was grateful, because usually I'd go till like 2 or 3 in the morning and just like...
Well, you guys have bad weather today, so maybe.
It's drizzling, but I don't think it's actually going to storm anymore. I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad.
There was a tornado warning south of Chicago.
But maybe with the shooting that just happened, it'll be a little calmer. Plus, Chicago itself does the official fireworks.
Wait... What would the shooting have to do with
They shut down a lot of, like, parade and firework events for today because of it.
Oh, the fireworks would be calmer. I thought you meant the weather. I
don't understand. Yeah, I definitely went off on a different tangent there that did not make sense.
That makes so much more sense.
Yeah. Plus, Chicago does their, like, actual official fireworks on Saturday, because they already do fireworks every Wednesday and Saturday at Navy Pier all summer anyway, so that's their official fireworks. A lot of fireworks displays and, like, parades and different events, especially on the north side of Chicago, are, like, done. They're not happening.
Yeah, which should be the case. What I'm hearing here, when I'm hearing fireworks from home, aren't official fireworks displays. So I wasn't even thinking about that when you said that. I was still thinking about the tornado warning. Because I went into a chat room and they're all like, well, everybody's worried about the shooting, but that happens every day in Chicago. And I'm like, you know what? Get fucked.
Okay, first of all, yeah.
Racist assholes.
Chicago has a lot of shootings, but all major cities have a lot of shootings.
You don't go to a fucking parade expecting to be shot. That's not what this was.
This guy stood on a roof of a building and shot down into the crowd. This is what happened. That's not an average shooting. That is...
Well, I was watching the news and they said that there's, like, a lot of disabled people that live in that neighborhood, too.
Highland Park, my brother and I were just talking about this. He just called we were talking about how, like, with the northern suburbs, the affluence of it goes up more as you go farther north. So, like, I grew up in Wilmette. It's a very affluent area, but, like, you go to Winnetka and it's a little bit more. And Glencoe is right above it, and that's also a predominantly Jewish suburb.
Yeah.
And it's very wealthy. And then Highland Park is extremely wealthy. And again, also predominantly Jewish. Like, there's a lot of Jewish communities that live up in Highland Park and Glencoe.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Hopefully they find, like, honestly, before I worry about anything else, I really hope they just find the guy. And then we can figure out what the motive was with the dude's issues. But, like, now he's just out there.
He's just out there.
Doing what?
And he's a teenager.
They all are.
Yeah, the description is, like, long dark hair, wearing a white or blue shirt, and he described between 18 and 20 years old.
White man, of course.
White, yeah. White, obviously. We grew up in a suburb. It was very quiet. It was very safe. Like, nothing happened. Yes, the Lori Dan shooting had happened while my brother was in second grade, but that was, like, kind of a one-off thing. And all the schools went into lockdown at that time, but nothing really happened. This feels different, and this is also, like, kids were involved, kids were there. Like, this is...
It's proof. It's just more further proof that nobody is safe ever anymore.
Exactly.
Every time it happens, it's just reinforced.
Yeah. Again, he and I were talking about how we were always surprised that there was no school shooting at the school we went to, because it would have been so easy. They didn't really,
back then, I think all of the schools would have been.
I was a junior or senior in high school when Columbine happened, and we used to talk about it all the time, about how easy it would be to take out a huge chunk of the school population with one blow.
Every school was like that then. You know, I grew up in rural Iowa. You grew up in a predominantly white, affluent area.
Yeah.
They weren't putting any kind of thought into that then because we were safe. I mean, we really were.
Yeah.
And I think what we've learned is that nobody's safe anywhere. None of us are safe.
The only time I ever felt unsafe is if I was on the street and my brother was driving a car. It's the only time I felt unsafe growing up.
I will say that where I grew up anyway, in the early 80s, mid-80s, there was quite a lot of, like, abductions.
Yeah.
Just, like, singular, one person abducted randomly and then never
heard or seen from again, yeah.
Yeah, well, and it wasn't, like, a thing that kept happening. It was, like, one thing, and that was the last you heard of it. Because I don't know if I ever told you this, but I almost got abducted as a kid.
No.
So I grew up on the edge of town next to the fairgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so we treated, by we I mean my friend Christy, who lived near me, we treated the fairgrounds as if it were our own personal playground. We ran around in there. I mean, it was open most of the year. There were fireworks every Friday night in the summer, or not fireworks, races, because there was a racetrack back there, and they had races every Friday night in the summer, and then the rest of the year, other than the actual fair, that was only a week long, there was nothing happening. So we would run around back there and play. Sometimes I was back there a lot by myself.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I was walking back home from playing out there by myself, and this guy in a blue pickup pulled up to me and was like, "Do you need a ride home?" And I said, "No, my house is, like, right there. I can see it, I'm fine." Not thinking anything of it, because it wasn't abnormal.
Yeah.
I remember people pulling over to ask me for directions all the time. And I never thought twice about it. Yeah, you just go down here. And so it wasn't weird to me. Now, it's weird to me. Now kids don't ever...
Like, when I was a kid, we could just, like, wander off and go to the park without telling our parents where we were. We would just, like, go do stuff, and just as long as we were home before dinner, it was fine.
I rode my bike to different towns when I was a child.
Wow.
Because there were kids at my school from other towns, and I would go over to Becky's house, ride my bike to Becky's house, and no one thought twice of that. On the highway, riding my bike to a different town.
Dude.
So... I remember when this guy came up to me, I didn't really think anything of it, and then he went to grab my arm.
Oh, scary!
And I ran home, and I got part of his license plate number. I was old enough to know to look at his license plate. I don't know how old I was exactly, but I wasn't like a little kid that wouldn't think to do that. Of course, we called the cops, and the cops were like, what do you want us to do?
So fucking useless.
I know. Well, this was also because his license plate was from a different state, which is common, because that was harder to trace back then. Now everything's connected, so the internet. But back then, it's like, if you happen to be from a different town, they're not going to check. They don't know. So anyway, let's start talking about Cleveland.
Yeah.
Cleveland, Mississippi is a small city with a population of just over 11,000 in 2020's census.
Okay.
The city was named after former President Grover Cleveland, and while things have improved over the years, Cleveland was historically one of the most impoverished towns in America.
Okay.
In 1967, Senators Robert F. Kennedy and Joseph Clark Jr. traveled to Cleveland as part of a congressional hearing meant to assess the effectiveness of programs that intended to aid those living in poverty. Kennedy reported that the poverty he witnessed in Cleveland amongst the black community there was the worst he had ever seen in the country. It's not surprising, then, in light of this abject poverty and hardship, that Cleveland is now considered an important spot on the map of the history of blues music, with 4 trail markers on the Mississippi Blues Trail calling Cleveland home.
Nice.
The Mississippi Blues Trail is an ongoing project of the Mississippi Blues Commission intended to highlight and educate travelers to Mississippi about the historical context and influence that the state had on the creation of the musical genre of blues, which has gone on to inspire much of American music that has been created since that time. It includes an assemblage of over 200 significant locations, and that number keeps growing, a new one added on May 25th of 2020 in Jackson.
Oh, very cool.
Blues is a musical genre which originated in the Deep South in the U.S. around the 1860s by Black Americans, taking root in field songs and spirituals. Blues form is characterized by the call and response pattern and specific chord progressions, as well as blue notes, also known as worried notes.
Oh, interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah. The term blues may have come from blue devils, meaning melancholy and sadness, and the genre is often associated with a depressed mood. Yeah. So when you say, I have the blues,
I'm sad.
You're saying you have the sads.
I have the unhappies.
Yes. The development of the blues is often associated with newly acquired freedom of formerly enslaved people who played it, many of whom lived in poverty in a system that was not set up for them to succeed.
Yeah.
Blues music is one of the few genres of music in the U.S. that is strictly American. The earliest references date back to the 1890s and early 1900s, and in 1912, black band leader W.C. Handy's composition, Memphis Blues, was published, quickly becoming very popular. In fact, it is W.C. Handy who is celebrated in our first of Cleveland's markers on the Mississippi Blues Trail.
Okay.
W.C. Handy, born William Christopher Handy, was born November 16th, 1873, in Florence, Alabama, and he is an American composer. He was an American composer. I don't know why I wrote is.
I'm guessing he's not alive anymore.
He's super dead.
Super dead.
He is super dead at this point, yeah.
Wow.
He was an American composer and musician who referred to himself as, quote, the father of the blues.
Wow, if you call yourself that, that's interesting. Conceited much?
Just put that in your back pocket, because I think you and I are going to agree with each other. He did not invent the blues, but he was the first to publish music in blues form, thereby taking the blues out of the Delta with limited audience to a more widespread popularity.
I like that better.
Handy began his career as a vocalist for a minstrel show, a band director, a trumpeter, and a choral director. He was talented at and loved music, and by all accounts seemed to just want to soak up as much of it as he could, which is likely what led him to listen to so many different styles of music while traveling through Mississippi in 1902.
Okay.
At this point in history, the state was mostly rural, with regional music making up a huge part of the culture, especially in the cotton plantations of the Mississippi Delta. Many of the musicians played the guitar or banjo, and Handy recounted one specific instance where, while waiting for a train in Tutwiler, Mississippi, which is about a county over from Cleveland, he heard a man who was playing a steel guitar using a knife as a slide.
Ooh.
Are you familiar with steel guitars?
I am.
They're my favorite instrument, I think, of all.
They have such a unique, interesting sound. It's really cool.
Haunting and sad.
It is.
It just has like a very... I mean, the blues is a perfect word for the genre. It really is.
It's sad notes.
Yep. In 1905, Handy was playing at a dance in Cleveland, Mississippi, when he was given a note from a member of the audience asking for, quote, our native music. He invited 3 young men with well-worn instruments to the stage to play. It was later determined that the leader of this band was Prince Mccoy, an American string band musician who played fiddle and had a pivotal but until recently unacknowledged role in the development of the blues and popular music.
I'm glad that he's starting to get some acknowledgement.
No recordings of him exist, which is why he wasn't getting acknowledged. Because it was before that was easily done.
Oh, that's a bummer.
But Handy did describe the music that he played in his autobiography, saying, quote, they struck up one of those over and over strains that seemed to have no beginning and certainly no ending at all. The strumming attained a disturbing monotony, but on and on it went, a kind of stuff associated with sugar-cane rows and levee camps. Thump, thump, thump went their feet on the floor. A rain of silver dollars began to fall around their stomping feet. The dancers went wild. Perhaps haunting is the better word.
Wow.
W.C. Handy described this moment as his enlightenment, but in a way he was kind of a shithead, because his interest seems mostly to have been about money, saying in his autobiography, quote, folks would pay money for it. My inspiration came from the sight of silver money. That's why I'm like, yeah.
For the love of money.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm glad that he did play blues music for the rest of us to hear, because I personally really enjoy blues music.
Oh, me too. Blues
and
is
the
great.
influences that it's had on other music, even more so. But that statement alone kind of grossed me out. Yeah.
Is this the thing that you thought we would be on the same page about?
Yes.
And we are.
Yes, yes, yes.
Nailed it.
As we discussed a couple weeks ago in our episode about Versailles, Kentucky, it was not uncommon in segregation-era America for black citizens to construct prosperous communities for themselves, and Cleveland had one of these too. This area was called Chrisman Street, and it served as a center for social and business life for the community. Chrisman Street was lined with nightclubs, cafes, hotels, stores, churches, homes, and offices, but probably its most famous establishment was the Harlem Inn.
Okay.
The Harlem Inn was opened by Leslie and Verdi Hugger at 718 South Chrisman in 1935, boasting no running water and only an outhouse in the back, but eventually expanding to a popular hotel, night spot, pool hall, and eatery.
Talk about growth of a business.
Many musicians stayed at the hotel, some of them even playing for other guests in exchange for room and board for the night. Isn't that cool?
Can we go back to a bartering system? Like,
oh god, that would be so great.
That would be incredible. I'd just barter stuff. Gladly do it.
I actually saw a TikTok that made a lot of sense that was talking about how we need to do that as much as possible now. Like, obviously we can't fully extract ourselves from capitalism, but if we can learn to, like, barter, so, for example, finding someone who has a garden and trading them, I'll clean your bathroom if you can give me enough food for a week or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would have a huge impact on the economy, and that's what's going to eventually make them listen to us.
Yeah.
It was a good point. I don't know how much it will work because people don't want to work for things.
Yeah.
Like that.
I mean,
but
I'd go back to a bartering system because why not?
yeah, they were saying, like, work, keep working, save your money. do not stop working.
Yeah.
And barter when you can. Which I thought was cool.
I mean, half the time at art shows, like, I'll barter with other artists, be like, hey, you liked my piece, I like your piece, can we just trade? And
trades at art show were the best.
I love art show trades. I have, like, half my art is from, like, art show trades.
I got a lot of, like, purses and stuff that way over the years.
I've gotten a few pairs of earrings that way. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Muddy Waters, Ike Turner, Fats Domino, B.B. King, and Bobby Bland are just some of the musicians who performed there over the years.
Damn, that's quite a list.
Mm-hmm. Chrisman was also home of Reverend Leon Pinson, who was born on January 11th, 1919. He contracted meningitis, which left him partially disabled and almost blind, but he was very talented on the guitar and piano, which enabled him to sustain a career playing at churches. But early on, before all that, he started out busking on Chrisman.
Huh.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He eventually went on to become a preacher that traveled the country playing gospel music with his musical partner, Elda Roma Wilson. It's for these reasons that Chrisman Street is the second marker in Cleveland on the Mississippi Blues Trail. The third stop in Cleveland is the Grammy Museum, which is an interactive museum that is focused on continuing music achievements of Mississippians. It was opened in 2016 and emphasizes the ingrained lineage of the Mississippi Delta's influence on music.
Nice.
Exhibits include, quote, the legacy of the electric guitar, Culture Shock, which is talking about how the blues has affected music in the last 50 years, and the Mississippi Music Bar, where guests can select and listen to hit songs by Mississippians. The location also includes an 140-seat theater called Sanders Soundstage, which hosts musical performances, seminars, and awards banquets.
Sanders Soundstage, that is a hard one to say.
Sure is.
Yeah. Like, say that one 5 times fast, you can't.
And the fourth and final stop of the Mississippi Blues Trail that calls Cleveland home recognizes Reverend C.L. Franklin, who was known as, quote, the man with the $1 million voice, due to his presence on the podium while preaching. He was pastor at the St. Peter's Rock MB Church in Cleveland, where he influenced gospel, R&B, and blues artists, including his 3 daughters, Irma, Carolyn, and Aretha, all who grew up to become noted soul singers after starting out singing in his church.
Man,
yes,
all
the
3
Aretha.
of them are beautiful women. Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And yes, that is the Aretha Franklin.
Yes.
Just to be clear.
Can't imagine there's another one. At least not as talented as her.
No, she's pretty... I mean, they're all talented.
Yeah.
In their different ways. Reverend Franklin was known for his inspiring and musical sermons, many of which were recorded and distributed or played on the radio on Sundays. In 2011, his sermon, quote, "The eagle stirreth her nest," was added to the National Recording Registry of the Library of Congress. The singing kind of chills out after a little while, but that's a really big part of it, and I think that that's what makes it cool.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like what you're used to hearing. When I've gone to temple, the very few times I've gone to temple, because I'm not religious, but, you know, there's a lot of singing combined with talking, and it's really interesting, but that's literally just singing and talking at the same time.
When I went to Catholic church, it was like singing, talking, singing, talking. And this is like, no, sing-talking.
Yeah, it's sing-talking.
It's the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's all together. I thought that was pretty interesting.
I liked it.
And I can totally see why that would influence blues music.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He did have a nice voice.
He absolutely did. He was also, I didn't really specify this, but since I included a photo of it, he was also involved in the civil rights movement. Yeah. That's not what this episode is about, so I didn't really go into that, but he did get involved with Martin Luther King Jr.
I'm never going to be upset if Martin Luther King shows up. I'm never going to get upset with MLK Jr. showing up in a story. This is the second time
neither, but I thought that was a really good photo of him, too. He just looked really happy.
Yeah, that smile is, like, infectious.
He's got a good smile.
He does.
Unfortunately, Reverend Franklin met an untimely end after being shot in an attempted robbery at his home in Detroit in 1979.
Oh, so sad. Awful.
He survived the attack, but remained in a coma for 5 years before passing away in 1984 in a nursing home. I also just want to mention this because it was kind of weird, and they just glossed over it, which I thought was super strange. But he also apparently, while he was married to Aretha and her sister's mom, fathered a child with a 12-year-old congregation member from his church.
Ew.
And then they separated, but they never divorced. I didn't want to go into that. Well, I don't know if I could go into that if I wanted to anyway, because I could not find any more information about it. Or maybe, like, you and I were talking about this before, because I was like, should I even mention it? But maybe that was normal then. I can't imagine it was, but maybe it was.
Who knows what the age of consent was, or if there was an age of consent. God, that's so gross, but, like, looking at it through our eyes and, like, current eyes, I think it is gross, but maybe back then it was just, like, something that happened. I hate to think that that's true, but history is kind of messed up.
It's true. Well, things are fucking messed up now. There are states that are trying to remove the age of consent. I don't think Mississippi is one of them, but Tennessee is, and that's right next door, so I'm blaming Mississippi for that, too.
Okay. Damn you, Mississippi.
I'm just mad at everything.
Yeah. That's so gross. God damn it.
When I was searching for more info on that, this is interesting to me, too, and maybe this is, like, maybe other people know this, I didn't. Aretha Franklin herself also had a baby when she was 13.
Wow.
To someone that her parents knew, a grown-up, that her parents knew.
It must have been something that was, like, kind of normal, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having a child at, like, 12 or 13. Like, that just, ugh.
No, and she raised that child, and then had a second one while she was, I think, 14.
Oh, my God.
So I don't know. I didn't look into it, because, again, this story isn't really about her. It's a little bit more of an overview. But I did see in that her, because she did raise those children, that they are still alive. There were a lot of conversations after she passed on wills. I guess they found a lot of handwritten wills in her home after she passed away. And so there was a lot of legal battles going on amongst these siblings, amongst her next of kin, over the legitimacy of these written wills.
Oy vey.
It's sad. I do want to just mention, because I do think that they're a big part of this, Franklin's daughters. We all know Aretha.
Well, fireworks are going off outside now.
Cool. We're almost done.
Okay.
I heard it, actually.
Oh, God.
That's okay. So we are all familiar with Reverend Franklin's daughter, Aretha.
Mm-hmm. Who hasn't heard respect? Come on.
Exactly. But his daughters, Irma and Carolyn, were also well-known gospel singers in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
Irma is known for recording the original version of Piece of My Heart that was later made popular by Janis Joplin. And Irma actually was nominated for a Grammy Award for that song in 1967, and I had no idea it was a cover. All of these years in my life, I did not know that song was a cover.
I had no idea that was a cover. That's incredible.
Me neither. Never would have thought about it. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I've only ever heard the Janis Joplin version.
Yeah, that's the one I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I really like Irma's version, to be honest with you. It's a whole different vibe. Okay. But I like it a lot. And then also, Carolyn spent a lot of time in her career collaborating with one or the other of her sisters. Mm-hmm. So there are some songs that she recorded, and I did include one of them.
Going in circles.
Thank you. A lot of the stuff that she's more well known for were as like a backup singer with her sister Aretha. She also was randomly in the Blues Brothers movie.
Oh, that's awesome!
Yeah.
That's so
playing
weird.
A backup singer.
Oh my God. That movie is so funny, too.
So, Irma is the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aretha, and then Carolyn.
Boom pop.
So, yeah, that's the story of Cleveland. I said this when Trump first won in 2016, that the only thing that I could think of at the time that was positive, that was going to come out of this whole thing, is that music was going to get better for a while. Yeah. Because art in general, but music, which is the thing I know more about, really thrives when shit is shitty.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can look through history. This is a perfect example of that. where these folks were able to make something really beautiful out of their pain.
Yeah.
And the terrible time that they were living through. And I just have to focus on that and hope that I'm around to see it.
Yeah. I mean, art does kind of thrive in times of turmoil, so.
It's true.
Yeah.
And you know, I think when you look at the radio and you're like, all of this is shit. Well, because we're all a little bit too comfortable right now, aren't we? Like, when we're comfortable, Nickelback happens.
Let's never get that comfortable again, please.
Right? Nickelback is a symptom of comfort, especially that shitty song Rockstar or whatever.
Oh God, no.
We thrive in shitty times.
Yeah. So keep the shitty times rolling.
Hopefully not. I'd rather be comfortable with shitty music, but I'm glad that shitty times have happened in the past so we can have good music.
Yeah.
Now. And hopefully, if nothing else comes out of this shitty time, some good music does. Speaking of good music, Beyonce is dropping a new album. I listened to one of the teasers that she dropped about it, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be real good. It's going to be a really good album.
She rarely disappoints. She's pretty perfect when it comes to that.
Yeah. So anyway, that is this week's story.
We did something that feels normal.
I know. I was just going to say, like, did I tell you? This is random.
Okay.
I took a nap this afternoon.
Oh.
Actually, when you texted me to see when we wanted to record, I was like 10 minutes awake at that point.
Oh, wow.
Which is why I had no idea what was happening in the world. Because I slept through it. But I had a dream, because Lamictal, that randomly... This is such a weird random dream. I had a dream that Ben Affleck and J-Lo rented a mansion in Montana for vacation.
As they do.
And it was like an Airbnb situation. It was like a rented from the owner situation.
Okay.
And the people that owned it were criminals.
Okay.
And they had weapons and guns stashed everywhere.
Okay.
So it just so happened that Ben Affleck and J-Lo were staying at this house when an FBI raid happened.
Oh no.
And there was a cage in the basement randomly of this house that they put Ben Affleck in while they searched the place. And my dream is of the headline of this.
Oh my god!
I had to Google it because it was so weird, because it was like I was reading a story in my dream of this happening. And I'm like, did that happen?
Oh my
real?
God, that is so funny. That is so funny and so weird.
I know. So that's what I was thinking about when you texted me about the shooting earlier. And I was like, can I go back to thinking about Ben Affleck in a cage? That
Honestly,
was a better thought.
As I was editing the last episode that came out, the Mommy one, my favorite part of that entire episode was us talking about our dreams, because it was just cracking me up, and, like, it was too much. It was too funny. It was too funny.
I'll tell you what, we might have a lot of those options soon, because these medications give me weird fucking dreams.
We'll have, like, a Jamie's Dream Corner.
I don't know if the meds are giving me weird dreams, or if I'm just sleeping better, so I'm having weird dreams, because I'm able to sleep better. You know what I mean? Because you tend to dream better when you sleep well.
Yeah, I have not been sleeping well, so I've not been dreaming.
Let's find out what you are going to be looking into.
Yeah, I can't wait to find out where we're going and what we're talking about so I can start my research.
All right. We are going to California.
Ooh, is this our first California episode?
It is. We're going to Riverside, California.
Well, hot damn.
I almost moved there. I got accepted to the University of California Riverside campus for their forensics program when I was in college, but I chose Pennsylvania instead.
Huh. Who knows where you would have ended up if you went to California? We might never have met.
We probably wouldn't have.
Yeah. You probably would have stayed out west and...
I probably would have actually been able to get a job after college. I probably wouldn't have resorted to selling my art to make ends meet.
Oh my god. Yeah, we definitely wouldn't have met then. We wouldn't be friends. I'm so glad you chose Pennsylvania.
I'm so glad I failed. I'm kidding. I liked my college. I'm glad I went to the school that I went to, but I do feel like I might have had more opportunities for advancement if I went to a college where people had heard of. Because University of California is a well-known college, even if you're not on the main campuses that people know of, they're all connected. So I applied to graduate school, but I came from a school that no one had heard of. And I think that did hurt me in the long run.
Yeah. The worst thing about my college is that people get it confused with the one in Kentucky.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I think there's a Bowling Green in Missouri, too.
I wouldn't be surprised, but the only ones I know of are the Bowling Green State University in Ohio, which is the one I went to, and Bowling Green University in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. Makes sense.
All right, what are we talking about this week? We have ourselves a Picker's Choice.
Ooh, that could be fun.
Yeah.
Riverside's a pretty big city.
Yeah, so I think I will have plenty to sift through.
I guess I will see you next week.
See you next week.
Happy wandering.
Bye.
Bye. No happy birthday to the United States. The United States sucks. Fuck you. You grounded. No birthday party for you. Thank you for listening to the Wandering Chronicles podcast with your hosts, Ashley and Jamie. You can follow us on social media at Wandering Chronicles Pod on TikTok, Wandering Chronicles Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and WND Chronicle Pod on Twitter. Or you can email us at wanderingchroniclespodcast@gmail.com. New episodes drop once a week. If you're liking what you're listening to, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple. If you don't like what you're listening to, that's fine. Please tell everyone you know about our podcast. Your bank teller, that person at work that you're pretty sure steals your lunch out of the fridge every day, but you can't prove it, so you don't say anything. The hot dad that walks his dog by your house every day. Your cashier at the grocery store. Your children's friends' parents. I bet they listen to podcasts. Okay, thanks. Bye! It's like the precursor.
Yeah.
It's the fetus of blues. It's not quite yet a child.
I hate the term fetus of blues.